Welcome to Florida Gators Live 8. Man, the rumors swirling around on Twitter today have been amazing for the Gators. And it's really going to go into our mock class today. We've been planning to do this for a week, but my mock class just in the past 6 hours has changed a lot. We're obviously going to start off with our top 5, bottom 5 from the Florida State game. We're also going to be doing some bowl prediction / where the Gators will probably be playing. And we're going to talk about if the Gators should be ranked in the top 25. But I mean, we also just got breaking news. Justice Boone is expected to enter the transfer portal. Obviously, last season he had a lot of hype coming into the season, but tore his ACL, if I'm not mistaken, before the season. Mm-hmm. So that set a lot of things back. That happens. And then this year he hasn't really played much. I believe he only had one snap against Ole Miss. I'm not sure if he even played at all against FSU. So I don't really see.
Actually, was just looking. He had 10 tackles in that game. All right, never mind. No, that's a season stats. I was going to say. I think he did play. No, sorry, he hasn't played since LSU. Yep.
Okay. He had one snap versus LSU or Ole Miss.
He is not. I don't see any stats listed for Ole Miss. He might have played.
Okay.
But he didn't record any stats.
But yeah, I mean, not really a shocker. I don't think it's really a big loss either. He got passed by guys like a Jack Pyburn, Cam James, and TJ Searcy's been playing a lot better and is a lot younger. So I don't really think this is a huge loss. Obviously, we saw Andy G enter the portal earlier in the day. Hadn't played at all this season. Mm-hmm. Dealt with injuries. And, I mean, good receivers on this team, so don't really see much opportunity for him to play. I think he probably goes to Miami, if I had to guess.
Yeah, especially with all what they're losing at the receiver position next year, that would be a fit that would make a lot of sense. I mean, like, I don't know about you. If you asked me to pick one guy on this roster that I was like almost positive would transfer after this year, it probably would have been Andy Jean.
Absolutely would have been Andy Jean.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. You know, a guy that they were excited about when they got, but just between injuries and just kind of getting buried behind other players, just hasn't gotten the opportunity. I mean, Boone, like you said, Boone, I think I had really high hopes for Boone this year. I mean, yeah. I thought last year that was kind of one of the missing pieces on defense was the fact that it kind of lacked a true edge rusher like Boone had the potential to be. We didn't really see it this year. Only had half a sack on the year. And like you said, limited appearances, sort of gotten, beat out down the stretch. I know like guys like George Gums playing a lot more than he is these days. Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer, but that attrition is going to happen. It's college football in 2024. Like, I don't think either of these guys factored heavily into the plans for next season. So
yeah, especially when you look at it, looks like the Florida class is going to be going from maybe 18 to 20 players to possibly 25 plus players. So you're definitely going to need this attrition. You lose like 22 seniors on the roster, and then you'll have some players in the portal. So we definitely need some players to leave so we can bring in the freshmen and bring in some transfer portal guys. But let's get into our final top 5, or well, not final actually, sorry. Our final top 5, bottom 5 of the regular season. So I started off last time. I'll let you start it off this time. What would you like to go with first?
I think it's a win, so I think we'll stick with top 5. So leading off my top 5 in the number 5 spot, I have planting the flag. And just I think the overall energy from the end of that game. It like, I don't want to be like cliched, but that was the most back the program has felt in a while, like beating FSU by 3 scores on their home field. And then, doing that, obviously, I mean, the lock screen on my phone for like 3 years was the picture of Chauncey Gardner getting stopped from planting the flag by Willie Taggart. They're both like wrestling for the flag. It was awesome. So definitely got those kind of vibes from it. People are mad about it. They need to grow up, win the game if you don't like it. That's basically how I feel. I think that was awesome. I don't like that Billy apologized for it, but hopefully he is taking a different tone when he's actually addressing the team about it.
I think Billy may have been more apologizing for like the players almost fighting.
Yeah.
You saw Marcus Burke and Cormani McLean, they were stomping on something. I know they stomped on the field as well. That might be more what he's apologizing for than the flag, but the flag was just in the crossfire of it,
Well, the flag was kind of what kicked it off too. I mean, like the whole engagement, like it was the same thing we saw at like 9 other games yesterday, where like guy tries to plant the flag after winning on the road and a brawl starts because of it.
Absolutely. My number 5 on the top 5. It's an interesting one. The DB depth. I mean, we saw Jordan Castell. He got hurt after like 20 snaps in that game, and Greg Smith actually comes in. And I mean, I know this FSU offense isn't really high powered to go deep on you, but we didn't give any of the deep balls up at all. So give him some credit. Plus, Jameer Grimesley, Traquez Bridges got shooken up for a couple plays, so Grimesley played a bit more than he probably expected to, and didn't really give up any big passing plays again. I mean, I gotta give the DB room credit. Can't really take away anything, but I'll give them some credit. They could have fell apart and let the FSU offense tear them apart a little bit, but they didn't. And I'm going to give room that we've hated on a bunch in this show some credit for how they played.
Yeah, you're right. We have hated on them a bunch, and I'm glad you put them in there for yours because, like, I think while we can hate on them to an extent, I think that group continuing to work and grow week by week is like a big part of the reason that this hasn't fallen apart this year. I mean, the amount of injuries they've suffered in the secondary, like, would kill most teams. We would just ruin the season. And we saw it against Texas. They were not ready. But I think they've improved down the stretch. They're playing, pretty well. And yeah, FSU's on a team like built to, beat you on a bunch of plays. That's not their MO in the slightest, but they did a good job. That's still a team that has a decent amount of high school talent, whether they develop it is another thing. But yeah, I mean, those guys have continued to play hard down the stretch, and that's a big reason why this team's 7-5.
Absolutely. Bit of breaking news while we're live here in the middle of the show. 4-star defensive lineman Joseph Mbachu has reflipped his commitment to the Gators.
Wait, what?
Are just you serious?
Happened. Wow.
Yep.
Well, you're seeing our reactions live.
He decommitted from the Gators about a month ago, and then he committed to Texas last week. And then he just flipped. Yeah. I heard he was on a visit, and I heard there was a decent chance that we get him back. We'll get onto that a bit later. We'll finish this segment, and then we'll talk about it a bit later. Just wanted to give that breaking news. I mean, recruiting's on a tear right now. Okay, go to your top 5 on the bottom, or bottom 5.
Yeah, so in my bottom 5, number 5 spot on my bottom 5, we've had him in our top 5 the last few weeks, but I've got a quiet night from Elijah Badger. I think it was one of the more disappointing things about the offense for me in this game. Only 2 catches for 11 yards for Badger on 4 targets. Yeah, 4 targets. So, this is a guy who's just been torching people, getting open on these deep routes. And I like that was, I think, the main thing I'll say that I was wrong about going into the FSU game was Florida did not really hit those big plays. Not even at like not a high clip. Like, they didn't really hit like any of them for the most part. Like, they really struggled to hit those, and Badger wasn't a big part of the offense. So I thought that was a bummer. Yeah, Clayton, you were right to an extent for sure.
Yeah, we projected us to win we both had us scoring 40+ points. I had 42.
Yeah, we had a 27-point margin. They won by 20. So, not like massive difference, but yeah. We had like something like a 27-point.
We both expected us to be more high powered at the start and then backups coming at the end and slow it down. But going on to my bottom 5, you talked about Badger or the receiver room. I have the wide receiver drops. The Gators had 4 drops in this game. One of them was like probably fully on Lagway. Like Burke had to come back for the ball. Like, it hits Burke in the hands and he doesn't catch it. But that's a hard pass to catch. Lagway should have pointed it a bit better. But like the other ones, Tony Livingston going up for a tough ball, has it in his hands though. He kind of needs to come down with that. There was another bad drop by DK and Marcus Burke as well. So it's like the wide receivers, they were kind of letting us down. And then you also, not just the drops, on the Lagway pick, Marcus Burke obviously ran the wrong route there. Lagway called the audible before the play, and Burke was supposed to run a hook or a short hook route there, and he went deep for some reason. Just didn't get the play call, I guess, and led to the pick, which could have been a difference in our score lines being correct. But from a wide receiver room, we have really hyped up this year. This was definitely their worst performance. Now, that FSU defense does have some guys like Azariah Thomas and Ventrell Cypress who will get chances to play on Sundays, maybe be good players on Sunday as well. But, just very disappointing game from them.
Yeah, again, we've said it before. Like, Florida State's defense, more so up front than in the secondary, but across the board, it's not horrifically bad, at least talent-wise. But, yeah, I agree. Obviously, like, you saw like a lot of Marcus Burke in this game. Don't think that was for the best. But credit to him, he did have that touchdown catch.
He did.
That was nice to see. But yeah, I mean, the drops really hurt you in this game, especially in a game, and I'll get to it later in my list, but where DJ Lagway is just not playing his best. Like, just straight up, he's not playing his best game. You got to bail him out more than the receiving room did yesterday, I would say.
Absolutely. Would you want to get into your number 4 now?
Yeah, number 4 in my top 5. I got a guy who, like, I've just been really impressed with down the stretch of this season. I got Jaden Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've seen Florida's linebacker depth get kind of tested this season, at different points, but he's a guy that really has stepped up. I mean, had 5 tackles last night, 2 sacks, just was really impactful. Like, I think he's had a lot of impactful games, but last night was like probably the most I've seen him just really change a game single-handedly. So something you like to see. I mean, that's, again, I think that one of the biggest bright spots on this entire team is the guys on defense that have stepped up across the board.
Yeah, that linebacker room, and we're bringing in a 4-star in Ty Jackson, who's going to be a really good player, I think, and a more developmental guy, Miles Johnson. And we probably keep Shamar James, so we're just going to lose the veterans and Moten and Mwingo this offseason, more than likely. Yeah. So it's like, man, this linebacker room, maybe one of the best linebacker rooms in the country for the next couple of years. So I'm really excited about it. Jaden Robinson, I liked what we saw from him last year. You can definitely tell he just needed to get more size onto him, being a freshman. He still has really good speed, had 2 sacks as well, so he's really good at the blitz and QB spies. So I'm really excited to see Jaden Robinson. Getting on my number 4 on the top 5, I have the running back room. I felt like the offensive line didn't give him a consistent chance to make plays, but when they gave him the chance, they hit those plays. I mean, we're talking about Montreal Johnson with his 65-yard touchdown run, had like another 11-yard run earlier in the game. Jacoby Jackson on his touchdown run, he had a couple big runs there. Jaden Ball had 60 yards. So it's like, while the offensive line was really inconsistent, if an offensive line is inconsistent and you don't have really good running backs, they're not going to make those big plays. But we do in Montreal, Ball, and Jackson, and they made those big plays. And that was really the difference maker in this game. So I want to give them a shout out.
Yeah, fully agree. I've got more about the running back room later, so I'll kind of leave it at that for now, but I'll just say completely concur there. Okay. Moving into my bottom 5. Next up, I've got something that's kind of continued to be a bit of a bugaboo for the Gators. I've got the time of possession. I mean, I don't think in and of itself it was a problem, but again, you lost the time of possession in this game. You also Florida State had more first downs than Florida did.
Yeah.
And like, again, like this game I never really felt like this game was in doubt after at least maybe like the first quarter or something like that, when it became apparent FSU wasn't going to score. But like, I just, again, and there's more I have to say about this later too with the offense, but like it just was frustrating that they couldn't just like take over the game, like run. I mean, they ran the ball for 235 yards, but they didn't have these like long commanding drives. They didn't have consistent ball movement throughout the game. It was frustrating to see against a team where I like really felt like you could dominate in that regard coming in. Like I thought it would play out a lot differently than the LSU Ole Miss games, like on a fundamental level, and it really just didn't.
Yeah. No, it did not. I would have liked to see us dominate the game a bit more, because we made the plays that they didn't, which really was the difference. And they had 8 forced fumbles and 6 recoveries for us, or 5 recoveries. I can't remember.
5 recoveries.
But 5 recoveries. So, yeah, we made the plays to win the game and win it pretty largely. This is also kind of how FSU has been all season. I mean, you go back and look at some of FSU's losses. It's not like they're most of the time losing because they're just being outmatched. Like, you look at Duke, they threw 2 pick sixes in that game. They lost by 7 points. Yeah. You look at the Georgia Tech game, they lose that by 3 points. A Georgia Tech team that's proven to actually be a pretty decent team. So it's not like this FSU team has been completely outmatched by many teams. You really just look at like Notre Dame, and I guess UNC also did pretty well, but still, I'm not going to hate on the team for winning by 20 points on the road against against a rival opponent. But again, on my number 4, I can't hate on DJ Lagway, so I'm going to blame it on DJ Lagway's hamstring. You could tell that his hamstring just wasn't looking the same that it has the past couple of weeks. Even on the throws he did make, like the 2 touchdown throws to Livingston and Burke, they were still pretty behind the receiver. So luckily the receiver did make the play, but Lagway's hamstring prevented him from putting enough arch on the ball to where he's leading the receivers more. I'm glad we're gonna get Lagway at least 3 weeks of rest to prepare for this bowl game. Hopefully more than that too. But hopefully that hamstring is better to where he can also be more mobile.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I agree. I hope you're right. I hope you're right that it was mostly a health thing. And I think that's probably fair to say. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's now been 2 games in a row where, like, the commentators right at the start of the game are like, his hamstring's bothering him. We're going to see, like, he might not have the green light to run. And then he, like, immediately tries to scramble. He didn't really do that a lot, though, after, like, the first drive of the game. I don't think he looked like particularly uncomfortable, like moving around in the pocket, but I think maybe it affected his mechanics a little bit.
I'll also say FSU was getting a good pass rush on him.
Mm-hmm.
So with the hamstring plus being a freshman, getting all that pass rush, converting pass rush onto Lagway, I think it definitely bothered him a bit. And I mean, hopefully he learns and gets better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I agree. Going up next into my top 5, I've got something we talked about a little bit, but it's the turnover battle. Really good in this game. A big part of the reason you ultimately won by 20, despite kind of having a dud of a game offensively, all in all. 5-1 on the turnover battle, I believe. Obviously, all 5 are fumbles. I mean,
yes,
like FSU, man. I know it wasn't as bad as you and I thought it was going to be, but like I think that team looked about as bad as I thought they would be. I mean, put the ball on the ground 8 times. Like, geez, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrific. And losing 5 of them, like, I mean, Florida just had a million opportunities in this game. And if they took advantage of a few more of them, this could have been, I think, a lot more like the win that you and I kind of hoped and expected we would see. But that doesn't change the fact that FSU never really had a chance just because they couldn't stop giving the ball away.
Yeah, they couldn't. I mean, the Gators took enough advantage to win the game like in pretty easy fashion. But yeah, not enough to pull away in the game. But I'm gonna go to my my third of my top 5. I'm gonna go what this win does for the program.
Yeah,
because not just is this a win against a 2-win team, they did it in front of a bunch of recruits, which we're already seeing it pay off for us with the commitment of Joseph Mbachu, but also we're getting a ton of other crystal balls. We did it in front of 5-star offensive lineman Solomon Thomas, who I think keeps trending towards the Gators in my opinion. But it's also a game that we were on a 2-game losing streak to FSU. We saw earlier in the day Michigan, who was on a 3-game win streak against Ohio State, where Ohio State was 4-score favorites, maybe. I can't remember. But they were more favorite than we were against FSU. And Michigan still pulled away to win that game and get 4 straight. You saw Miami get upset by Syracuse in a game that Miami was a 2-score favorite, I think, against Syracuse, maybe 3 scores. But we saw it all day with upsets and very close games. So to still get a comfortable win, I think it's a really good moment for this program to look forward and hopefully put that performance in the past, but put just the win in general in front like of everybody, the recruits, the transfer portal. And it still looked like the players were hyped up, even though it kind of was a bit of a dudded performance or a lazy performance. So I'll take that every day of the week.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's obviously because it's Florida State, it's different than it normally would be beating like maybe the second worst team in the entire Power 4 behind Purdue, like maybe. I mean, because again, it's FSU. Like, yeah, you didn't turn in your best game and you still won by 20 points. And like, I think that's such a good point to bring up them and what happened to Miami, because it wasn't that long ago that it looked like Florida's standing compared to its in-state rivals looked like it was going to be really bleak. I mean, Florida State was coming off a huge year. Like, it felt like Mike Norvell was really getting it going. Cristobal, had all the hype coming into the season, and then they prove it seemingly in week 1 against the Gators. But now things have turned. Obviously, FSU's had the worst team in their modern program history, and like Norvell's not getting fired, but like, I mean, they're hiring Gus Malzahn. Like, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel like this is heading in a good direction at all. And Cristobal, like, they're about to miss the playoffs and have like half their team leave. So it's not as dire as it looked like it was. And I think winning this game handily just like proves like, hey, like Florida's right there in the mix with these guys.
And I'll also say FSU, their recruiting class took another big hit. Their 3rd highest ranked player, Peyton Joseph, 4-star offensive lineman, flipped to Georgia Tech earlier today. I mean, man, like, I don't know what FSU is going to do, because I think we'll get into it later. Solomon Thomas is gone. And their 2nd highest ranked commit, Kevin Wynn, He has projections to flip to South Carolina. So, I mean, this class, their highest ranked player is going to be the QB, who was the backup plan after Trammell and Carter Smith decided not to go to FSU. So they're looking at, I wouldn't even say the third QB, because there's also higher QBs on the board earlier that they probably missed on. But I'll say the third QB to give them some credit. Like, probably the third quarterback they were looking for. I mean, he's going to be the highest ranked commit, and he's like a 200 type of guy. I mean, FSU and Gus Malzahn, I don't think he's going to be good at all for them. And if they want to fire Mike Norvell, it's going to be $50-60 million next year. So,
yeah.
Real
quick on FSU? I haven't fact checked this, but I saw a tweet today that if they have one more decommitment, their decommit class is going to rank higher than their actual 2025 recruiting class.
Wow. I mean, if that commitment is Solomon Thomas, that's probably 100% true.
Yeah. It's not ideal.
But
moving on to, number 3 in bottom 5? Yep. I've got something. I won't talk about this too much, because we kind of already have. I have DJ Lagway's poise, and again, like, don't want to hold it too much against him. He's a true freshman playing on the road while limited with a hamstring injury that takes away a big aspect of his game. He played fine, especially if you believe that the interception was not really on him, which it kind of seems like was the case. So I'm fine with it overall. I just think, like, and he made some really nice plays. Like, don't get me wrong, the one where he shrugs off the defensive tackle to roll out and then find DK with a perfect pass. Like, dude was cooking at times in this game.
He was.
He also had a lot of misses, like missed plays that could have been big plays or nice gains or first downs, or even, I think, in at least one instance, a touchdown. So, like, I just think that, it wasn't his best game. And I think we knew this was coming. He's a true freshman, and he's been really good in the games he started. And it was probably his worst start to this point, I would say.
It was, I'd say. As well.
I guess my whole thing with DJ is I would just say, like, hopefully it's not an early bowl, which we'll get into in a second.
Yeah.
And they have more like a month for him to rest. And hopefully we kind of see a more 100% DJ against whoever that bowl opponent ends up being.
Yeah, absolutely. I already talked about DJ Lagway's hamstring as my bottom 4. But I mean, I already hope gets that month rest. And I hope we see a mobile DJ Lagway, because we haven't seen that mobile DJ Lagway since the Georgia game. And I mean, he's making those crazy plays against Ole Miss and LSU, and made some good ones against FSU as well. I mean, I want to see him make those insane plays as a mobile guy. I mean, we might need it depending on who our bowl opponent is too, which we'll obviously get into. But my number 3 on the bottom 3, the fluidity of the offense. I felt like we were throwing it on first down a bit too much, or the run plays just wouldn't work, and we kept getting behind the sticks. You're getting in second and longs, third and longs. And even sometimes on third and shorts, we just weren't converting them. I mean, now that's partly because of the drops and misses from Lagway. But I mean, I also feel like it's been on the play calling. And I mean, we already talked about it last night. This game, while yes, was a great win, and hopefully looks to be a great win for the future of the program. But I just got lost in what I was saying. But it looks like it was a great win for the future of the program. But it really proved that Napier does need to go out and get a solidified play caller.
Yeah. I think that was and again, I have something kind of more about this here later. So I think a lot of similarities on our list today, but yeah. I mean, I agree. I think last night, if you are someone who wants to see Billy Napier succeed here, but you're also someone who believes that he needs an offensive play caller, I think last night was the perfect result for you. Because I think it demonstrated that while you still beat FSU by 3 scores. And again, I'll get into more of that later. But going back to my top 5 at the number 2 spot, I've got something you talked about already here. Just the run game, man. They just continue to be just workhorses. And I think that, I mean, for a team that ran the ball 30 times in this game or something like that, it didn't really feel more than 30 times, 34 times.
Wow.
Not counting Lagway's carries. Yeah. 34 times. So, I mean, it didn't really, did it feel like that to you? Because I felt like Florida should have I think Florida should have run the ball 40 plus times.
That's how I felt. I felt like we abandoned the run for some reason, but we did run 40 plus times. I mean, 34 times. So it wasn't, I agree with you. I think it was more of a situational thing. I think it was just not running the ball when we should have, and not the success we weren't having on passing downs that made it kind of feel worse than it actually was. Because obviously ran for 235 on these guys, which is again, a decent front 7, but I mean, 200 yards in any game I'd take. I mean, 200 rushing yards is not an easy feat.
Yeah. So, I mean, bottom line, like those guys played really well. And I want to give a special shout out to Montrell, man. Like, you know, for a guy who kind of like, I don't want to say got supplanted because he was hurt and Baugh and Jacoby were playing really well in his stead. But like, exactly. Yeah, they bought out. Exactly. But I think like, I mean, Montrell coming back, you know, working his way back into the groove and like being willing to split carries is like the senior here. You know, the guy that's been here for a while, the program guy, like just love to see it. And he had a great game yesterday.
He absolutely did. I have a player for my number 2. I have Miles Graham. I mean, you talked about Jaden Robinson. I'm going to talk about Miles Graham. I believe he was our highest rated PFF graded player for this game. With Pup Howard out, Jaden Robinson playing. Now, Graham was in that Jaden Robinson role that we've seen Robinson excel at. We're also seeing Miles Graham excel at it. He's really good at stopping the run, playing decent in pass coverage. I mean, the evaluations, I mean, now we're lucky that this evaluation is also a legacy guy with one of the best running backs in our program's history. But still, I mean, getting him onto the team, I mean, we've seen Mullen miss on a bunch of different legacy players. Like Emmitt Smith, EJ Smith went to Stanford instead of Florida. So it's nice to see us actually get those players. And then the development at the linebacker position. We lost our defensive coordinator, who was it again, to Texas A&M. He was the linebacker coach. Brad Bateman. And we saw the improvement a little bit on the linebackers last year, but we bring in Ron Roberts, and Ron Roberts has in this linebacker room playing, I mean, maybe like, again, I already said it, like one of the best linebacker rooms in the country, and it includes those young players like Miles Graham and Aaron Childs.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just more guys, young guys that have been thrust into key roles and had to play a lot of big time snaps. I mean, like maybe we've hashed this out on the show already, so like, sorry if we're redoing this, but like, am I crazy for thinking that like Pup's starting job is not guaranteed next year?
I think you are.
I mean, maybe that's fair. Like, this isn't a Pup thing. This is not a Pup thing at all. This is about the way the young guys are sort of starting to flash in the linebacker room. Like, and then maybe, I mean, Shamar might not come back either.
That's,
maybe that just is the solution there. But like, you got a lot of guys here who look like they could compete for big time reps next year.
I'll say when Pup was on the field, he was outplaying Shamar. But since Pup has been hurt the past couple of games, Shamar has probably played his best football of the season.
Yeah, and Shamar's been all over the place.
Clayton with his own top 5. One of my top 5 would be the right hook from LJ McCray to the FSU QB. LJ tweeted after the game that was accidental. I don't think he would really lie about that, but like it was a kind of awkward thing. So, I mean, hey, we love it. We love to see it against a rival. And did it get flagged? Or he did get flagged for it. What am I saying? I mean, that was a bogus flag. Come on. Yeah. Roughing the passer. I mean, hey, bottom 5, the refs. FSU had 0 penalties in this game. I mean, there were a couple obvious penalties, like holding calls on them that I mean, there was a false start on it. I don't know. The refs get a bottom 5.
Yeah, between all of Miami's like mishaps this year, or I guess the opposite of mishaps because they keep getting extremely lucky. But like between that, like it has not been a banner year for ACC officiating. That is for sure.
It has not, no. I mean, oh man, Miami I'm not gonna say they got bailed out, but like they kind of got bailed out in a couple of games, like Virginia Tech and Cal.
Oh, they absolutely they literally got bailed out in the Virginia Tech game. And I think the Cal thing might have been the more egregious call. It just didn't necessarily flip the game. All
right, let's get on to your bottom 2.
Bottom 2. Next up, I've got in my bottom 2, I've got the offensive line and pass pro. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit today, but like Lagway was just, under pressure all game. And that was a little frustrating to see against a offensive line, that I thought had played really well. I mean, LSU's defensive front is nothing special. Ole Miss's is though. Yep. And they handled it last week, I thought, very well. Didn't play as well in this game. I think FSU hires a coach who put on his team to coach players who put on the team.
Yeah.
Yep. Can't argue with that. But no, I mean, like, I don't think Lagway only ended up getting sacked,
once.
3 times? Only once? Wow. It felt like a lot more than that. But
maybe he got sacked again in the end of the game, like fourth quarter.
Also, FSU's credited with 4 quarterback hurries, and I think they're conservative in terms of how they credit quarterback hurries. So it probably was even more than that if you're like being real about like hurries that actually impacted the play. I mean, I think that's a big part of why why you saw Lagway struggle at times, with his accuracy and such.
Yeah, the O-line definitely, I mean, they disappointed in this game. Also, I forgot to mention on my last one, play calling. We should have ran more screens and quick plays because they were bringing blitzes and getting pressure. So to counter that, you run screens. I mean, we have players like Aiden Mizell and Elijah Badger and, I mean, DK and Tate Hawkins, who actually got a decent amount of playing time in this game. They can take those screens and turn them into big plays. So I would have liked to seen that. But getting on to our top one, I still have my bottom two. We gave up a lot of yards to FSU, I feel like. I mean, on that fourth quarter, they were driving a good bit on us. Now, this had been the strategy for like LSU and Ole Miss, who had struggled scoring in the red zone. But I would have liked to see us play a bit more aggressive. Because at this point, we're not playing SEC teams that are in the top 10 of the talent rankings. We're playing an FSU team that their offense has been horrific. So I would have loved to see us be a bit more aggressive. It is a rival. I mean, we got 8 sacks, so it's not like we weren't aggressive. But like with our coverage, we were still playing soft coverage, just letting them dip and dodge on us, which they did pretty successfully. I mean, when I previewed the game, I said their best chance to win it, get sacks or get pressure. They did that. And take the checkdowns, which they did. So I would have liked to see us be a bit more aggressive because, I mean, I know we're on our 5th string defensive players at this point, but I still feel like those guys are better than FSU's starters. And they're also missing players as well. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel like we're maybe splitting hairs a little bit here just because they still only had, they had less than 250 yards in this game. But like, I think you're right to an extent. Like, I think when Kromenhoek wasn't just under siege, which he was for like a good portion of this game, they did like have some plays and move the ball. I mean, they actually didn't run the ball too much in this game. They had a lot of guys carry the ball, but like 21 of the 44 carries are Luke Kromenhoek, and he went for 32 on those, which is a third of their yards. So like, they didn't really do much. I mean, Toafili had a couple nice runs, but like,
maybe they got a lot of penalty yardage. That might be because we had like 7 penalties in this game. Yeah. Which I think at halftime we only had like 2 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 7 penalties for 70 yards on the Gators.
So I think most of those happened. I think that happened in the second half. So that's where we saw maybe a good bit of those yards come from. Like that roughing the passer was a 15-yard penalty right there. So that we talked about with McRae. So, maybe that's a bit, I mean, it's nitpicking here. I mean, I feel like the mistakes we made were pretty obvious in this game with the offense, really. So I wanted to get the defense a little bit of a nitpick there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these kind of turn into nitpicking after, 20-point wins. It is what it is, but you're never perfect. Going to my top spot in my top 5, probably not really a surprise considering what we've talked about already.
Both had it.
Yeah, do we? I mean, we've had it again. The defensive line, the pass rush. I mean,
I literally have the D-line.
I think I've had them as my number 1 for the last 3 weeks, and like, sorry, I'll take them off when they stop playing at an extremely high level, but that's not the case right now.
I mean,
they were fantastic.
I'm the same way. I had the D-line. Number 1, I mean, Caleb Banks and Cam Jackson both got hurt in this game. Jackson returns to get 2 sacks. Caleb Banks, before getting hurt, was disrupting in the backfield all game. 14 TFLs. So add 6 TFLs to those 8 sacks. I mean, and the 8 sacks is crazy. I mean, I think Tyreek Sapp, if he returns next year, could be an all SEC level player because he has 7 sacks on this season, with most of them coming in probably the last half of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at a guy who can get 10 sacks. And who was the last player to do that at UF? Jonathan Grenard?
I was about to say probably Grenard.
So it's been since 2019 that UF has had a person with double-digit sacks. I think you could have that in a guy like a Tyreek Sapp. And, I mean, hopefully we get an elite edge transfer as well that can also maybe have a close double-digit amount of sacks.
Yeah, Pyburn had a sack in this game, too.
He did.
I think he's playing really well down the stretch, even though he's not necessarily like a prototypical like pass rusher, I would not necessarily say.
I was shocked. Like, he impressed me with his pass rush a bit. I mean, it wasn't the most fancy things, but like, and it's not the greatest line. But still, I mean, he's taking advantage of his matchup, which that's all you can do in a game.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, losing Banks and Cam Jackson at different points in this game, like battled through that, had a great game. I mean, that was the reason that despite the fact that everything else kind of had some issues, this game was like never really quite in question at all.
Yeah, a couple strip sacks. I mean, we didn't even pick up one of the strip sacks. Yeah. So it's like FSU got a bit lucky there. But yeah, this defensive line, I mean, we do lose Cam Jackson, Caleb Banks next year. We obviously lost Justice Boone, but hasn't really been much of a factor since it's been playing at an elite level. But we do have guys like Cam James, who is also stepping up, TJ Searcy, who is getting better, and we're seeing it. I mean, Kelby Collins was our highest ranked recruit in the class of 2023. So, I mean, he's going to be at that Caleb Banks role, and if we can see the development that Banks got, you give someone who was as highly rated as Kelby Collins was that same opportunity, I mean, we could be looking at someone even more dominant than Banks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and hopefully Collins, sticks around. I think that's a guy that maybe is a portal watch, but hopefully he doesn't.
Yeah, hopefully not. I would love to see him stick around. We also had some young players like DeAndre Robinson. He felt like he was all over the field when he was on the field. So another young defensive lineman stepping up. I do think we probably need one veteran transfer in this offensive line. I mean, also losing Desmond Watson, nose tackles. So we probably need one or two transfers on that D-line. But, I mean, the young players are stepping up. The veteran players, Tyreek Sapp really is going to be that big veteran presence next year on that D-line.
And I'd be kind of surprised. Like, you're saying Sapp might go pro?
No, I'm saying he will be the veteran presence on that D-line next season.
No, sorry. You said if he comes, assuming he comes back earlier.
About Sapp?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, he could go pro. I mean,
I was just curious. I didn't really think that was like much of a possibility. I was curious if you thought maybe it was more than I did.
We see players go pro that never really should have gone pro.
Yeah, so I think NIL is changing that a little bit.
That's true. I'm not going to rule anything out the books,
Yeah, for sure. Finishing up with the bottom five. Again, I won't hammer this because we've talked about it already at a pretty easy extent. But I just wrote the offensive game plan in general because I just didn't really get it. Like, I mean, it's kind of all encompassing the issues you talked about, like the down to down fluidity, like the getting away from the run game, the kind of lack of, I guess, just juice in the passing game. Like, I'm not sure how else to describe it, but it wasn't there. We weren't finding those quick, easy plays for Lagway to make at a lot of times in this game. Like, I just think it all in all could have been better against a team that I really expected the offense to have its best game of this. Like, because the offense, I don't think has been fantastic over the last 2 weeks, but I think it's been plenty good enough to win. I was kind of hoping you would get that breakout, standout game from Lagway in the offense, and obviously that just did not happen.
Yeah, I definitely need an offensive coordinator. We'll probably cover some possible candidates in the next show or two, which I mean, they definitely need it after that performance. But to wrap this up on my bottom one and the bottom five, I have the interior of the offensive line. Damian George is out for this game, but I had really high hopes for Bryce Levette. I had given him a ton of praises this year. Didn't really deliver. Daryl Jackson was in the backfield all game. Number 6, I mean, he got shrugged off by DJ Lagway. So that's what's going to go on the highlight reel. But they're not going to show him getting probably 3 of the pressures at least, because I felt like it was him who was doing them when they were getting pressure. So it's like that interior offensive line definitely needs. Maybe they just weren't motivated for the game. I mean, Slaughter still graded out really well in this game, so I guess it wasn't most on him a lot. But I mean, you got to think the one outlier was Levette. I mean, I don't know how good Harris was. I haven't rewatched the game yet, but not Samson. Sorry, I was thinking of Okolova. But Solomon Thomas definitely gives him an opportunity to come in right away, in my opinion, when you're losing Damian George. So we definitely need to improve this interior of the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. I think it maybe, was made me a little bit less bullish on the idea that I think it's clear you need to portal a couple guys on the offensive line this offseason. And I mean, I will just point out, again, we've talked about it before, but this FSU defensive line, the production hasn't been there. But I mean, they have guys like Patrick Payton, who was expected to be an early day one pick coming into the season potentially. Hasn't panned out that way, but these guys are talented, and I think they had more success probably than Florida was anticipating in this game.
Definitely was, but guys, if you're enjoying the show, but you can't always get it onto YouTube, we're also live on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. So you can catch the Florida at the Voice of College Football chat on any of those channels. I will provide the link in the comments. And there it is. So if you can't make it to the live show, or you just prefer listening to it, maybe if you're working out, driving, or any of those things where you just can't be on YouTube, we have plenty of other spots to watch, listen to the show. But what do we want to get into next? Want to talk about bowl game predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Or
Florida's back in a bowl game. Wasn't it last year?
Actually, we got more predictions for recruits. Since the live has started, we got predictions for him. Already has some for Stubbs. Now we have some from Lagonza Hayward, who's another top 100 safety who decommitted earlier from Tennessee. I mean, man, this recruiting class is also.
Wait, was that a Wiltfong? Was that like a Wiltfong crystal ball for Hayward?
Oh, I believe it was.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Game was over at halftime, garbage time, last 30 minutes. Well, what was the score? 14-0 at halftime?
Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say garbage time. I will say the play calling definitely felt like garbage time, but that's how it is with Napier. Saw it against UCF, we were up 24-3, especially. Would have saw it against Kentucky if the players let them. But, I guess you can say that.
Sorry, I was just saying, Clayton, like, I will say, like, you were definitely right in the sense that, like, I was hoping Billy wouldn't do his typical Billy thing where he gets a 2-score lead and then just completely sits on it. Obviously, he did. So that's where I was definitely wrong on that one.
Yeah, we already covered Joseph Mbachu flipping back to Florida. Huge get for the Gators. A defensive lineman that has a high talent. I mean, a ton of talent. So maybe he steps up next year.
How surprised? I mean, because I'll just spoiler here right now. We'll get into the mock class later. He was not in my mock class.
I forgot
by this one.
I had heard that it was one of him or Myron Charles that we were back in for with a good chance. I assumed it would likely be Charles, but then I heard earlier today that Mbachu was on campus for. We had a bunch of surprise visitors.
Yeah.
So, you're good, Dave. You're good. You came in late. It happens.
Yeah,
you're fine. Just wanted to let you know. But now, let's get into some bowl game predictions. There was a tweet earlier about the 3 possible more than likely bowl games Florida would be in. Let's go from my least favorite to the favorite I want to be in. My least favorite would be the Gasparilla Bowl. Game is played December 20th. It's a matchup between an SEC team versus an AAC or ACC team. So the matchups that I have written down that would be likely to come out of it, for an AAC team, Memphis just got ranked in top 25 after a huge win. They were 2-score underdogs to Tulane in that game. So that surprised me. I thought Tulane was going to have a decent chance to make the playoff.
Yeah.
But now they're not. So I think that would be this interesting game from just it being a fun game. High-powered offense with Memphis. And then 3 ACC schools I have written down. Duke, 9-3 season for them in year 1 of Manny Diaz. Syracuse, also a 9-3 season in year 1 of Fran Brown. And Louisville, who just went 8-4 in the ACC under Jeff Brom in their second season. Of those matchups, it depends on how you want to look at the bowl game. If you're looking at the bowl game from the fact that you just want to get the easiest opponent, dominate them, and have the most momentum going the next season, I think Duke would be the opponent there.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it. Duke, if they don't get 2 pick sixes and like 3 other turnovers, they probably lose to FSU. They don't really have any good wins. Like best one, Virginia Tech, who's a 6-6 team, I think, or 7-5 team. So probably Duke. But you also have to think about the tie-ins and like the order they go in. So I think like a Louisville or Syracuse would maybe be a higher rated bowl game, which we can get into later. But what do you think about the Gasparilla Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the Gasparilla Bowl would kind of suck just because it's the early one. I mean, I think Florida's odds against Memphis. By the way, Clayton, I agree 100%. I do not want to play Syracuse in a bowl game. Number 1 passing offense in America right now. Do not want that smoke. Nope.
Their strength on offense is our weakness. I mean, especially if you have those injuries. Like that's what I was gonna say. Maybe I was gonna say a bit later, but yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, and also to address Clayton's other comment. So the Gator Bowl, from what I understand, the Gator Bowl has it's SEC and then it's alternating whether the tie-in is Big Ten or ACC. I'm fairly certain this is an ACC.
It is ACC.
Gator Bowl. Yeah. Okay. So that's not a possibility in the Gator Bowl.
Yes, it is ACC. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other one I would also say, I saw someone project Gasparilla against Memphis. I believe it was CBS Sports projected that. I mean, I think you got it. I mean, Memphis is a good team. I mean, they beat Florida State. So they're capable of beating a bad Power 4 team.
By one score though.
Yeah, you're right. It was close. I mean, I think that's a good matchup. I agree on Duke. Duke's a really good team defensively, but that offense it's tough. It's tough to watch. Yeah. So I think you'd like that matchup there. Another one I actually have, because I saw this projected twice, another matchup, Liberty Bowl versus TCU.
Oh, yeah, I was going to get to the Liberty Bowl next.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I was on the gas early, yeah. Yeah, you're good, because I have that one written down. Liberty Bowl versus a Big 12 opponent. I had 3 Big 12 opponents written down. Baylor, TCU, Kansas State. I think those would be the most likely. Maybe Colorado. I think Colorado might get a higher bowl than Liberty Bowl, though.
I think so, too.
If they did, I mean, Florida versus Colorado would pull probably the best numbers of any bowl game outside of a playoff game. So there is that. The TV dealers, they might want to do that. Go ahead on TCU. You started, so I'll let you finish that one.
I mean, not a ton to say here. I mean, a TCU team that, like, low-key, pretty good offensively, I think would be I mean, they've had some nice, like, high-scoring games. I think not quite as scary as Syracuse, but sort of scary in kind of a similar vein. I'd feel a lot better about playing TCU than playing Syracuse, to be clear.
I'm kind of the opposite of that. I think we would dominate TCU more than we would dominate Duke. If you go back and look at TCU's schedule, lost to UCF, a 4-8 UCF team now.
Yeah.
All their wins. So they're 8-4. I looked at it. I think they have the lowest strength of schedule in the Big 12, which for how bad the Big 12 is, that's impressive. Like some of their wins came against West Virginia, who is not that very good of a team.
Just fired a coach today.
They just fired Neil Brown. That's right. Kansas, before Kansas went on that streak of really good wins, they lost to Houston, who was just an abysmally bad team. Lost to Texas Tech. I don't have the rest of their schedule pulled up. But of their 8 wins, I think only like 2 of them came against 1 or 2 of them came against bowl eligible teams.
Didn't they have to like have some really improbable comeback to beat UCF or something like that?
They gave up the comeback against UCF.
Oh, it was the other way around.
UCF won that game.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You're right.
They were up like 35-14 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think I agree definitely in comparison to the Duke. Because again, Duke's defense is good. Like I think the Florida would struggle to score points in that game.
I also TCU, so Cincinnati, not a good team. They gave up 28 points to Arizona. They scored 49, and Arizona's even worse than Cincinnati. Oklahoma State, who was one of the favorites early on, but went winless in Big 12 play. They lost to a hot Baylor team. They beat Utah, no QB Utah.
Yeah,
I mean, again, these wins. They beat Texas Tech. That's actually a decent win. They beat Texas Tech.
Tech is good. Yeah, Tech had a quietly very nice year.
So that was their 2 best wins were Texas Tech and Kansas before they were even on that.
Back when Jalen Daniels was throwing the ball to the other team 3 times a game.
Yeah. The most interesting matchup would be Baylor. Baylor's on a 6-game win streak. Dave Aranda was in the same position. They were the 2 coaches most likely to get fired next. And now both of them are going to be returning. And if Baylor can keep their team, because Sawyer Robinson – he might get some NIL deals from some SEC schools, Auburn. So if they keep their team together, they might be the favorites in the Big 12 next year. Kansas State's an interesting one. Avery Johnson just hasn't been as good as people thought.
Yeah.
But if we were to play in the Liberty Bowl, I probably want to face TCU because I think that would be the easiest matchup.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Baylor is scary in a very similar way to Syracuse. I mean, their offense right now with Sawyer Robertson, I think, is like a top 5 offense in the country over the last month or something like that. I saw a stat along those lines. They're playing really well right now.
Baylor is a Hail Mary away. I'm not sure the tiebreaker from being in the tiebreaker to make the Big 12 championship.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly. Colorado.
Because there were like 9 teams that still had a chance to play for a Big 12 title going into Saturday. They were they were like they were like 4th or 5th in that hierarchy of teams hoping to get in.
Yeah. So like if they don't give a Hail Mary up, they might make it.
Yeah.
They have a chance at the playoff.
Yeah.
But let's get into the last bowl game we're going to talk about. The one that I want to play in, the Gator Bowl. It's on January 2nd. It's in Jacksonville, obviously. I guess we don't really have a good history of that, or this season didn't go so well on or Everbank Field with all the injuries, especially DJ Lagway. But I think it's the most it's the Gator Bowl. You know, it's with the name the Gators. It's definitely the biggest bowl game that we probably can make. The teams I have written down. So again, Duke, Syracuse, maybe Clemson. I don't know if Clemson's going to be too high for that one. But I mean,
probably will be because they're probably going to be like one of the first teams out of the playoff.
Well, if they lose, they're 20. They're in the AP poll. They're ranked
actually 20. Maybe 9-4, so not necessarily. Yeah.
And then another one I wrote down. Now they're probably going to be too high. A rematch against Miami. I mean,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. But like exactly, George said it a minute ago. I would like to play Miami in a bowl game. That would be so nice to get revenge. Because I mean, that Miami team will all be out for that game for drafts probably.
So, I'm not sure Florida gets its revenge in that game, but I'm very curious to see how it plays out this time around. Because again, we've talked about it before, but I don't think Cam Ward is operating with the time he had in that game if he plays this Florida team right now.
No. I don't think he's playing. I think half the Miami team opts out.
Oh yeah, good point. Good point. True. Wasn't even thinking about opt-outs. Yeah. And I mean, we didn't have Lagway, and I mean the Miami. I don't know how Florida couldn't do more against that Miami defense that has, in retrospect, turned out to be like pretty awful.
Yeah, one of the worst defenses in the Power 5 probably. So I would like to play in that game. Again, Duke. They finished high in the conference. Syracuse. I think rankings wise, Louisville would probably be the next highest because, I mean, I think Louisville's actually a good team compared to Syracuse. Syracuse is good. Their offense is good. Mm-hmm. But we've also seen Syracuse lose to 3-9 Stanford. I have the teams written down here. They lost 5 lost Pitt. They threw 6 interceptions in that Pitt game. Pitt lost their last 5 games of the season. And they lost to a 6-loss Boston College team. So we've seen Syracuse struggle offensively and lose to very mediocre to bad teams. So, and then I also have written, oh, no, that's for a different segment. Okay. But yeah, so like Duke, Miami, Syracuse, Louisville, same as the Gasparilla Bowl. Or Clemson. I could see getting Clemson on if we get the Gator Bowl. The Gator Bowl representatives were at the Florida Ole Miss game. Now that could be for Ole Miss, but we could see Ole Miss play maybe like one of the Tennessee Bowl games as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Gators probably the peak of where the high point of where the Gators could go here. I mean, it'd be cool. We haven't played in the Gator Bowl since 2011 or 2011, the year against Ohio State. So, I mean, it would be cool to see. I mean, I'm a Jacksonville guy. I'm not sure I'll be able to go to that because I don't think I'll be in town, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that. And I think it'd be fun to see. Like, I want to see Florida play a winnable opponent. Like, I don't want them to get matched up with like a top 20 team very much necessarily. But I think it's kind of fun.
I think it's a winnable opponent. A top 20 team.
Yeah, maybe like, well, I mean, you're not going to play a top 15 team probably in a bowl game. But like, I mean, I guess I'm just saying, like, if you were to play, like, I think Clemson would be tough. I'm not saying Florida couldn't beat Clemson. I'm just saying I think that would be a tough matchup.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I just got the graphic for Lagonza Howard, his prediction to come in.
Ooh, okay.
So I can't really I can share the link for it, but copy, and I'll put it in the private chat again. But man, recruiting is just taking a turn that I don't think either of us could have projected. Like,
no.
We have a chance to be the best class in the state of Florida. Let's get into our next sponsor or promotion deal. Check in the Ole Miss Live Wednesdays at 2 p.m. They have their post-game, or they have their live show. They also have their post-game live show after every game. Obviously, the regular season's done. They still have a bowl game. I don't know if you see this, if you've seen it. Lane Kiffin on Twitter posted a full argument as to why Ole Miss should be in the playoff over Alabama and South Carolina too. The argument for South Carolina was easy. We beat them by 25 points. or 24 points.
Mm-hmm.
But for Alabama, he had a full list of why they should be the playoff over them. So, I mean, even if you just want to laugh at Ole Miss and their head coach, go check out the live show, 2 p.m. on Wednesdays, and they have their post-game show they'll have for a bowl game, I assume. So go check out that. It's the same as here, Ole Miss at the Voice of College Football. Great content there. Mark Rogers, he does the show with them. So, it's a good show. Clayton, that's the end of the show. That's our last segment. That's how we're going to hit the main event. We're going to do a full mock class. The mock class might be outdated by the time we finish this show. It already is.
Yeah,
I mean, we already had Bachu commit earlier in the day. So, of course, we're going to hit the recruiting buzz. Actually, we have one more segment, and then we'll get into more recruiting stuff. So, should the Gators be ranked in the top 25? Obviously, the AP poll came out earlier today. They were like 30th in votes.
Mm-hmm.
4 votes, about the same as last week, if I'm not mistaken. I have a list of the teams who are 25th, 23rd, and 24th, and 21st. Or Missouri might be higher, or 22nd. I can't remember. But so Memphis, they're 25th in the rankings. They have 2 losses to UTSA and Navy. Their best win, Tulane, who I really like Tulane, so I can't really be hypocritical about that. But still, Tulane doesn't really have any really good wins. They just beat up on their bad opponents.
Yeah.
They actually have some pretty bad losses. If an SEC team lost to Oklahoma, like Alabama lost to Oklahoma, that's considered a bad loss.
Yeah, they lost to middling Power 4 teams.
Yeah, they lost to middling Power and Kansas State. I mean, if the SEC team or Big Ten team lost to Kansas State,
I'm including them in the middling Power 4 teams, by the way. They're kind of disappointing.
Yeah, honestly, very disappointing. Second in the odds to begin the season, or second behind Utah, I think. So
I think they were the preseason favorite, actually, from the media.
Depending on who you asked.
Yeah.
I think betting odds had Utah first.
I think the actual media poll, though, had Kansas State. I might be wrong about that, but that's why I remember that, I think.
Yeah, so again, I mean, 2 middling losses. I mean, compared to Florida's losses. I mean, Florida's worst loss is a Texas A&M, who's 20th in the AP poll. So, when you just look at the AP poll, I mean, and Florida has better wins. So that's just 25th. Now let's get on 24. Army. Army has no good wins. Like, it's just simple as Army has no good wins at all. And they got destroyed by Notre Dame. Yes, they did dominate their opponents. And that Notre Dame game on paper wasn't as bad. Like, they got this. No, they actually stopped Notre Dame at the 1, so it was actually worse, I think. But Florida should be ranked in the top 10. Maybe we're reaching there. I don't want to diss the Army because it's the Army.
I don't want to diss the Army.
But if we're looking at it just from a football perspective, outside the fact that they beat bad teams, my Army really shouldn't be ranked. Syracuse, they have the win over Miami, so they do get credit for that. Florida lost to Miami, but I already talked about it. Syracuse's losses, 5-loss Pitt team. They lost to a 6-loss Boston College team, and worst of all, a 9-loss Stanford team. A Stanford team that just lost to San Jose State in a rivalry weekend. I mean, those are just horrific losses. Like, we talked about Kansas State and Oklahoma being bad losses. Oklahoma would probably beat Pitt, would be all those teams, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I mean, I think Florida should be ranked over them. And then Missouri. Anytime they play someone good, they struggle. Shut out by Alabama. 3 points against Texas A&M. And then that loss to South Carolina actually was close. So I'll give them that. But their best win is Arkansas, where it was in the snow and they won it on a last-second play. That just doesn't scream ranked team. Missouri, you know what they scream? Preseason odds, or preseason favorites, kind of. They were in the top 10 in the preseason. They didn't lose to anybody bad, but they didn't beat anyone good. So with how they do the rankings, where they kind of drop and raise teams instead of having a new ranking every week, that's really the only reason why Missouri's ranked, in my opinion. I'd probably rank Illinois ahead of Missouri, who's currently below. And Illinois doesn't really have any good wins, but at least Illinois didn't have preseason odds that bolstered them up.
Yeah, and Missouri kind of had a joke of a schedule, like by SEC standards too. Like that's a bad 9-3, like or 9-3, right? Yeah, there's a reason that like there are 9-3 SEC teams in this convo, and Missouri is not one of them. Their schedule is not good.
Not even close to one of them.
No, they're not. I mean, look, I mean, when I thought there was a chance Florida would be ranked in the CFP. I didn't expect Florida to be ranked in either of the actual polls. They didn't even get any votes in the coaches, I don't believe.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. The fact when I saw no 8-4 teams make the top 25, I was like, okay, it's probably not going to happen for the Gators, because I think there's plenty of arguments to be made to put the Gators over a team that's like one game better than them, given the schedule. I mean, all the losses are teams ranked in the top 20 or something like that, or like they don't have any bad losses and a couple now nice wins.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think like I would say I hold out a little bit of hope here because of the way the committee does things. Like, first of all, the committee's rankings to me feel much more like a power ranking than like the actual polls do. And and also I think the committee is way more so than the polls willing to take into account how you're playing at any given moment in time.
Gus doesn't have a winning record. The losing rolls, I like it.
I mean, it is weird. We've already talked about it a little bit, but like I don't want to get too distracted. But it is kind of weird that like Norvell is just staking his entire future at Florida State in kind of a washed Gus Malzahn. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to get on to my last point. Have you ever seen a team whose worst loss is to the 20th ranked team in the country that also has wins against a top 25 team in LSU and a top 10 team in Ole Miss not be ranked? Is that ever happened before? I can't think of it at the top of my head. I mean, even at Auburn, who back in 2017 or 2018, it was 2017 because I was UCF year. So back in 2017, Auburn, they were a 2-loss team and they were first ranked in the college football playoff poll, ahead of the undefeated and 1-loss teams in the SEC. So it's like they do have the there is the evidence in the past to say you have 2 more losses, but you also have 2 better wins than probably anybody else in the country. So you can put that 5-loss Florida team over that 3-loss Indiana or 2-loss American Conference team. Or did I say 3-loss Indiana?
Yeah.
I meant Illinois. Or Missouri. So you can put that 5-loss Florida team over them. And maybe you'll get some hate from people who are like, oh man, the SEC is just SEC bias. SEC is overrated. But I mean, if you put those 2 teams on the field, Florida's probably winning all those games.
Also, I think last I checked was top 20, ranked 20th in the Sagarin rankings, which are, if you're not familiar, like a analytics-based rankings that it's like includes FCS Division II, or like stacks all the teams against each other. Wow. Top 20 in that. So like the metrics say, I think maybe top 20 in FPI too, though I haven't checked.
I think we're 21st.
Okay, so point being, this is a top 25 team by the metrics. It's 7-5. Results matter. I'm not saying results shouldn't matter. I'm not trying to make that argument here, but I don't think it's as out there as like people might think it is. And like ultimately, like again, I think there is a reverse Jordan Travis argument to be had here a little bit. I mean, all these losses came without DJ Lagway. I mean, you can count Georgia if you want to, but I don't think you
Lagway was leading in that game.
Yeah.
So honestly, I mean, and even the results matter. You're saying you're not trying to say they don't. Wins also are results. Playing a good team is a result. Beating a top 10 Ole Miss team should matter way more than beating an unranked Temple who just had people saying they should end their program. They had their own student base make valid points, too, that Temple should end its football program. Now, Temple did just hire a new coach, so they're not getting the program. But still, they made valid points that Temple should end the program, but you're getting a team ranked because of wins like Temple, UAB. I mean, I'm not trying to – I don't want to diss on the Army still, but like – and Memphis is the same way.
Yeah. But I just jump in real quick before we get too distracted. I did not see that. I had to look this up when you said it. I totally missed Casey Keeler to Temple. He's been around forever. He's like in his 60s. That's an interesting hire for them. They had a good year at Sam Houston. Sorry, didn't want to derail the show with that. I learned that now for the first time.
any bowl projections out? You just missed them, Justin. I'll read you out. I'll give you a quick breakdown of what we said. Gasparilla Bowl, probable opponents would be like Memphis, Duke, Syracuse, Louisville. We had the Liberty Bowl, possible opponents Baylor, TCU, Kansas State, maybe Colorado. And then the Gator Bowl, same thing with the SEC teams, but add maybe Miami, Clemson, and Louisville. We broke those down a bit more earlier in the show, so I'm sorry you missed them. But we're about to get into really what everyone's been waiting for. But first, our last promotion of the show. Mark Rogers, one of the leaders of the Voice of College Football. He has his main call-in shows Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. He has late post-game shows on Saturday night and Sunday. He has a show at 11 a.m. You can go to the college football show with Mark Rogers at the main channel, Voice of College Football. Go watch his shows. I watch them. You can call in if you want. He also has other people call in. And, I mean, you get some pretty funny callers on there. You had some guy talking about a trophy. This was a couple weeks ago. You had a guy talking about a trophy I had absolutely not heard of before. And I don't even remember what it was. But something from like the 50s. And he's saying this thing means more than the national championship. I mean, probably none of us even would know what it was, even if I remember what it was called. But you get some pretty interesting people to call into those shows. It's pretty entertaining. You can give you some laugh and maybe learn some college football knowledge. So go watch that show. And now I think it's time to get into the moment people have been waiting for, you know. It's Wednesday. Signing days on Wednesday. We're going to give a mock recruiting class. So if we don't say a player, it's either we forgot them or they're committed and we're not worried about them flipping or anything at all. We're going to start off here. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay. We're going to start off with some players that are committed that have maybe flirted with other schools a bit. First one, I'm not really worried at all about. Well, I'll go through two of them real quick. Ben Hanks Jr. and Jalen Wiggins. An article was uploaded earlier today saying that Wiggins is staying. So that kind of got shut down right as I was making this list. But Ben Hanks Jr., he actually just broke the Miami record for interceptions in a season at 10. Or I can't remember if it was seasons or a career. But he just broke the all-time Miami record. So really good player. He was flirting with Miami a bit. He almost took a visit to them. But he ended up taking the visit to Florida. That's really where I was like, okay, yeah, he's staying. And all the momentum Florida has. So I have Ben Hanks and Jalen Wiggins still in the class. And I'll let you go.
Yeah, I agree. No disagreement there. I mean, Hanks is a legacy. Really good player, one of the best players in the class. Certainly not a guy that like Florida would want to part ways with by any means. And Wiggins, yeah, I've heard the same thing you did. It sounds like he's shutting his recruitment down. So I think both those guys seem pretty safe at the moment.
Yeah, I just want to mention, while we're having this upward trend in recruiting, you know who isn't? USC. 10 blue chip prospects from its class in 2025 have decommitted. I mean, wow, what a downcline for USC and Lincoln Riley. Yeah, I know there were people who wanted Lincoln Riley to come here. They want Florida to make that splash higher. But, I mean, wow, what a downward trend for them. So we do have Ben Hanks, Jalen Wiggins in this class. Let's get into someone who also was flirting a bit, took visits to Alabama and Louisville. Nashawn Montgomery. So I'm not 100% sure if he does stay. I'm going to predict him to stay. But I also do wonder with us taking this higher quantity of players, if he kind of just gets pushed aside. I mean, there is some more traction with some other receivers. We're going to be looking at the portal. 2 portal receivers already entered that. I think Florida would be looking good for both of them. Kevin Concepcion from NC State, who was amazing as a freshman. Yep, he entered earlier today. That's a big-time name.
Yeah.
But biggest thing with him, his younger brother is committed to Kansas State. So that's something that you probably look out for. Not a guarantee he goes to Kansas State. And Eric, I can't remember his last name, from FIU, nearly 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns as well. I mean, a guy with high production at a lower level. So it's like maybe
Eric Rivers, by the way.
Eric Rivers. Okay, I was thinking something like Shivers or something again for some reason. But Nashawn. So maybe it's the thing where we don't necessarily push him out, but we're not really communicating with him as much anymore. Just kind of letting him leave. I'm going to project him to stay because the opportunity to play with Lagway and the overall program hype right now is there. So I'm going to say he stays. But if Bama or Louisville put a really big press on him, maybe he flips.
Yeah, this is one of the guys I don't honestly, there's a lot of these guys I don't feel like they could kind of go either way here. I've got him right now as not being in the class,
Okay.
just because I think Florida's pursuit of the other receivers plus the interest he's getting from Louisville and Alabama, I don't know, I could easily see a reality where he sticks in the class. It feels to me like it's trending in the opposite direction, and maybe it would be kind of a pleasant surprise if he ultimately sticks it out.
All right, so that's the first one we disagree on. Yeah. I'm going to keep track of these so we can go through them at the end. So, no end. Okay. Next, we're going to look at Tayshawn Kelsey. He was on a visit to FSU this weekend, saw the Gators win. So, here's the thing I'm not sure with. I know FSU is letting him play receiver. I mean, they've obviously got 2 5-star tight ends in their last cycle. So, they're pretty good at tight end. And, I mean, they're really bad at receiver. So, they can offer him to play that wide receiver position more than we can. I'm also going to say he sticks with Florida. I mean, there's just so much hype around there, around the university right now. Obviously, another chance to play with Lagway. Even as a tight end, early playing time is possible. I mean, it's not like our tight ends have really impressed. So even as if he's a great receiver, he can be a receiving tight end for us. So I'm going to say he stays. What do you think?
I think, we also disagree here. Again, I don't know, I don't think that visit to FSU would have been particularly, encouraging, but at the same time, he calls himself, he said he's conflicted. He said that in multiple interviews. I don't know. Florida already has a 5-star receiver committed in the class and has another tight end commit too.
Mike Jones.
I kind of lean towards probably no on Gilsey.
No,
but again, we'll see.
All right, the next one's interesting. Chad Gasper, 3-star running back out of Texas, I believe. He's out of Texas. So, from what I've heard, Florida is not giving him a scholarship. He had a season-ending injury in his senior season. So, I think we take him as a walk-on, but our preferred walk-on. But the question is, does he decide to go somewhere else on scholarship? I'm going to say we don't take him. Or I'm going to say he leaves even not including as a walk-on. So I'm going to say he leaves somewhere. He goes somewhere else.
Yeah, completely agree with what you just said. Okay. I hedged. So I have him as a no, but I'm kind of hedging there and saying he's a no in terms of being on scholarship.
Okay.
I agree with you. I don't think he's part of the class as an official scholarship player. Whether he chooses to stick around, I mean, I kind of am with you that probably the answer is just no in general, considering he's also the 3rd highest ranked running back in the class at this point in time. So yeah, that kind of seems like he's probably either not a take in terms of he's a preferred walk-on, or he's not a take in terms of he just takes an offer to go play elsewhere.
Yeah. So neither of us have him in the class. Okay. Next, Jeremiah McLeod. Now this recruitment's been very interesting. Before the season, I was being told by a lot of people that he was flipping to Georgia. And then nothing happened. It kind of just been quiet. All of Florida recruiting was quiet for that first half of the season. And then we get to the Georgia week, and that's when the rumors start swirling. He started getting predictions to flip to Georgia. He doesn't. He sticks it through, and I think he's going to stay in the class. From what I've heard, he's been helping recruiting other players. So, I mean, everything now points to him staying at Florida. I wouldn't be shocked if he flips to Georgia. But I think now that all the momentum's with Florida, I mean, we're about to get into the flips, and there's some big names on this list. So, all the momentum's with Florida. We really need those D linemen. I think Gerald Chapman saw him visit him before the Georgia game or after the Georgia game. So I wonder if that's really what helped decide that he was going to stay. So I'm going to say he stays in the class.
Yeah, this one I really went back and forth on. I think just to be clear, a lot of the reason I have some of these guys as no's that are in the class right now that you have as yeses is because when you look at the class right now, it's sitting at 21 guys. And I think there's a few guys committed elsewhere that I feel pretty good about the Gators flipping. And I don't think they're signing 25, 26 guys. So I think someone's going to be the casualty here, whether it's on Florida's end or on the player's end. I will agree with you. I'll say we get McLeod. I'll say that I think that if you were going to flip to Georgia, there's a decent chance it would have happened already.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to believe like he wouldn't have flipped during any of the turmoil during the Georgia week, but then is now going to stick around now that there's momentum on and off the field. Like, I don't know. I'll agree with you there and say he sticks around in the class.
Okay, so when look at the committed players, we both agree that Ben Hanks Jr., Jalen Wiggins, and Jeremiah McLeod will stay. We also agree that Chad Gasper won't be a part of the class. And then we disagree. I have both Nashawn Montgomery and Tayshawn Gelsey staying in the class. So I'm being a bit more liberal than you. Well, excuse me, being a bit more liberal than you. I think the players do stay. And I think we take a larger class. I think another thing to look out for with that walk-on spot, with NIL, maybe you just give them a bigger NIL deal, and that counts as a scholarship.
Yeah.
Especially when we look at the SEC announced they aren't going to do it as of yet. But other conferences, 105 scholarship athletes, no walk-ons. So I do wonder if they're kind of hedging, like what you said, hedging for when that happens, because it could happen next season.
Yeah.
So maybe they're preparing.
And isn't it what you're describing is exactly the situation they did with Cormani, right?
Yep, he's a walk-on, but he's obviously
walk on with a sizable NIL package relative to walk-on.
Yes, yeah, and I heard that there might be some players on our current roster like Elijah Badger and Chimari DK who might also be walk-ons, not even on scholarship.
Really?
I heard that. Don't know if it's 100% true, but
interesting. Well, it's a lot more of a muddied line now with NIL and stuff. So,
all right, we're gonna look at some of the flips. Oh, I did have Mbachu on the list. Okay, well, he already flipped, so we got.
And I had him as a no. So
yeah. Well, I think that also. Let's start then with Myron Charles. He's also a four-star defensive lineman that is committed to Texas. After Mbachu flips, I'm 100% gonna have it as a no. I also would have had it as a no before Mbachu flips.
I also had him as a no.
So we're both gonna say no to him. Where should we jump around to next? Do we want to go position by position? Do we want to go stars down? Who do you want to hit next?
Let's talk about. Actually, I want to hit. I want to hit a guy who Okay, let's do it.
Crazy question. If we win a natty soon in any sport, would you dye your beard orange and blue?
You know what, Zach? We can talk. We can discuss terms if and when that happens.
And by any sport, I mean, Florida wins a national championship at least like once a year.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not. I'm going to have to make an executive decision here that like tennis doesn't count. No disrespect to the fantastic athletes on the UF tennis teams, but yeah, I will say if Florida wins a national title in basketball, football, or baseball, we will consider it.
Okay, Rob wants us to start from the lowest star to the highest. So let's do it.
Can I just lead off with what I was going to say? Because I think
what
I'm talking about is a 3-star. It's a guy I want to talk about because I think you and I probably both have this guy as a yes. It seems like all the momentum's here. I got Onus.
Onus Konabani, yes. Okay.
Yeah, Onus Konabani.
Composite 4-star.
Yeah. He is I'm sorry, is he still committed to Tennessee or has he decommitted?
Yes, he's committed. Okay. There was actually, so I'm actually a bit low on this one now. He announced earlier today, or there was an article released earlier today, that he might be waiting until February to sign.
I did see that.
So I'm a little bit slower now because there's a whole 2 months left until he will sign.
Yeah.
I also probably instill yes at this moment. There's some other guys on the list that could possibly be a yes that also just says he's not a take. I'm not going to say that because a 4-star corner from Tennessee, I'd take any day of the week. But I'm going to say yes, but I'm way more hesitant on this one than I was maybe 10 hours ago.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think I still see a delay here as a win for Florida. Honestly, if he doesn't sign on signing, I mean, I think anytime you're pursuing a guy committed elsewhere and he delays his recruitment, that's a good sign. Big 3 or softball. Okay. We'll add Tim Walton's crew in there.
It's going to be tough to beat Oklahoma and Texas, but yeah.
It will be. Especially considering Oklahoma, I don't want to get sidetracked again, but Oklahoma's control of the softball is ridiculous. The resources they're afforded and stuff, it's stupid. Who do you want to talk about next?
Let's get to the next one. So we want to go lowest to highest. Kellen Wiley, 4-star linebacker out of Florida. I think we've taken our linebackers for this class with Ty Jackson and Miles Johnson. This is going to be a no for me. I think he's a good player. I think he's a high potential. I would have liked, even if we looked at him as edge rusher. Jaden Wood, though, we took him on Friday. So that kind of probably eliminates Wiley's spot in this class. So it's going to be a no for me. I assume it's the same for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that the only way Wiley would be a take is if they decide to recruit him as an edge. I still am with you, though. I don't think it's enough of a position of need. I think they kind of leave that one be.
And I've been hearing Texas for him as well. So that might be interesting right there. The next lowest, man, we got a lot of highly rated players here. The next lowest, believe it or not, Lagonza Hayward. I mean, this is a top 100 rated guy here. I mean, someone before the season, before he committed to Tennessee, Florida was really after. But he definitely got negative recruited a lot against us. And I mean, we already talked about he already's getting crystal balls to commit to Florida. I'm going to say yes. I mean, I would be surprised if he commits in the next 24 hours. So I'm going to say yes for him, and pretty confidently at this point.
Fully agree. I think I'd say I'm maybe the most confident of any of these flips in him right now. Wow. I'd agree with that. Yeah, I mean, a guy that truthfully kind of wasn't on my radar much until the last few days. I mean, we've talked a lot about the guys that Florida's pursuing in these last couple of weeks, and his name just hasn't really come up. But decommitted from Tennessee, and now it's looking pretty good. I think it's also Georgia in the mix there.
Yes,
right?
Georgia's in the mix, but from what I've heard, he's on campus right now, and dead period starts
decommitting while on campus. That's a good sign.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it. So I'm pretty confident he is. And then the next guy, Hilton Stubbs.
Yeah,
he also plays at Mandarin with Jamie French and Tremello Jones. He got the crystal balls from Fong before. Will Fong before Hayward even did. He's a guy that I think also was a big factor of negative recruiting. I mean, he was committed to USC first and then flipped to Miami. Definitely a money guy as well. But I think with Florida's momentum, and now heard they got a big donation in today. So with the money now being involved, I'm going to say yes. And what a change this safety room is probably going to be next season.
Yeah, I mean, between these two guys, it's a nice class. And again, we've talked a lot about how that's a position of need. That. And I agree. I think he's going to be in the class. A guy that I think I don't want to say was playing around with Florida for a while, but just has kind of been all over the place in his recruitment. But it seems like it's all sort of kind of coming to settle, and Florida's in a good spot now that it has. So
absolutely. And now the rest of the guys on this list, all 5 stars. Maybe we're forgetting someone. Let's start with the one I think is the least likely. We kind of just put him on here for name value. DJ Pickett. I think if he's going to flip, it's probably going to be. I think he does flip from LSU. Actually, I think he's going to Georgia. If Florida still had Corey Raymond, and we were having the success we were having, I think he'd be a Gator. But I don't know we're having the success right now if Will Harris or if Corey Raymond's still on the staff. So that's kind of the thing you got to look at. But I do think he's going to end up flipping to Georgia. They got him on campus for that big win against Tennessee. So I don't have him as a Gator.
No, it seemed like there was a brief window of time in the last couple of weeks where maybe you could have snuck in there and maybe made a pitch with Pickett, but it doesn't sound like that has really gone anywhere. I don't expect him to commit to the Gators.
Absolutely. So now these last 4 names, these are the interesting ones. Let's start with the highest ranked. I think it's Dallas Wilson.
I believe so.
5-star wide receiver committed to Oregon. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say no. But here's the thing with Dallas Wilson, his personality. He could wake up signing day fully expecting to commit to Oregon and change his mind on his instant. He's been committed to Oregon for nearly 2 years. He only took 3 visits. All of them were to Florida. I mean, so the staff's done a really good job of getting him to come to games. I mean, nowhere else. I mean, you know how rare that is for a kid to be committed for 2 years and only visit one team and do it 3 times? I mean, they're doing something at Oregon, a lot of money probably, to keep him satisfied. But I don't want to say I wouldn't be surprised because this is a game changer in the recruiting class. But I could see it just randomly happening. It's just how he is and stuff that's going around personally for him. So I'm going to say no, but I would love for it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Florida's done a really good job here making the push. I don't think it's going to be enough to overcome Oregon. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Oregon is one of 3 or 4 schools, I'd say, that really have their NIL together, relative to the rest of the country. that's going to be a big payday for him. I'm not sure Florida. I'm not sure. Like, I don't want to say shouldn't because he's a fantastic player and I think you should get him if you can, but I'm not sure it'd be the best use of Florida's resources to try to match whatever Oregon's offering him here, to be quite honest with you. I just don't see it happening. I mean, again, with these I think with these guys we're going to talk about a receiver, like, I agree with what you said. Like, it could be a vibe thing when you wake up on signing day morning, but based on the information we have here, I don't think Dallas Wilson's in the class.
So let's go to one that is more likely. Let's go to Solomon Thomas. Been committed to FSU for 6-7 months at this point now. I think he was really solid with FSU, even though they were having a bad season. But then Tramel Jones flipped. Then they fired Alex Atkins. I mean, I just don't think he sticks with FSU. And from what I've heard from the LSU side, I still don't think he's going to flip to LSU. He's really only named 3 teams. So unless we're looking at a surprise Colorado commitment, which now that I spoke, is probably going to happen, I think he's going to sign with the Gators. I mean, he's really loved UF. He really likes Billy Napier. Rob Sale might be one of the biggest negatives for him in this. Negatives for him. So I'm not sure. I hear he's not really the biggest fan of Sale, and Sale isn't the best recruiter. But I still think the hiring of Alex Atkins, if Florida does hire Alex Atkins, which has been rumored, his contract does end. So maybe they're also telling him a different O-line coach on the field we're hiring. I just think at this point, unless he delays his commitment, I don't see anywhere else he would go. So I'm going to pick him to be a Gator.
Thomas, Jacksonville guy, seems to be pretty close with like Tramel Jones and Jamie French and stuff like that. The other kind of
Stubbs
in that crew. And Stubbs, another guy in that crew. So, like, like, I think that, when it comes to LSU, I feel like I've just heard a mixed bag. Like, I've heard that LSU's kind of, maybe the team to beat. I've heard LSU's kind of not as in it as it sounds like they are. I've heard a lot of different things with him. I mean, we've heard that, his mom wants him to be close to, or his family wants him to be close to home. Jacksonville's closer to Gainesville than is Tallahassee or certainly Baton Rouge. All this is to say, I got him in the class. I think they pull this one off. And I'm not sure they pull anything else off that's of this caliber, but I think this is the one they do get. And by the way, between him on the interior and Tavares Dice, the offensive tackle they got the other day, like, pretty solid offensive line class if you can pull that off.
So, Dave, if Thomas was going to flip, don't you think he would have already done it? Here's the thing. I think he really likes Mike Norvell and really wants to take his time, wait until signing day. I just think the hiring or firing of Alex Atkins really is probably what done it in. So I think he's going to flip, whether it's to Florida. We both predict it to happen, but it is recruiting. Really, anything can happen. And yes, Thomas did say he was picking on signing day. I think I may have seen that he's doing it on the 5th instead of the 4th. But again, I might be remembering that wrong. But we both have Solomon Thomas in the class. And it's like kind of like DJ Lagway was. That was kind of like a big win. That's like game changer. We haven't had a 5-star offensive lineman since 2015. So this kind of also would be a program changing commitment. Let's get into the next one. Naeem Offord. A week ago, it was announced that he had a top 3 of Auburn, Ohio State, and Oregon. He then got predictions to flip to Auburn. Hasn't done it yet. But now I'm starting to hear a lot of smoke, especially from the Auburn side, especially after we flip Tavares Dice. Auburn's starting to get worried that it's going to end up being Florida that flips him. Now, it's really hard to see this one happening. I mean, there's a lot of secret visitors I've heard that are on campus right now. I don't know if Offord is one of them. Maybe he is, because of the big names that would be on here on campus, Offord is probably one of the more likely ones. I mean, if he is, look at Stubbs, look at Hayward, look at Mbakju just committed. All those guys getting projected and already coming to Florida. Maybe they drop Offord a big bag of money and it's like, hey, just commit here. And, look at Will Harris. I mean, he's with his cornerback 6 and Jameer Grimesley still winning games by 20 points, only giving up 11 points. So I think that's a very pretty picture to look for him. I'm going to let you go first because I still haven't even decided yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'll actually be kind of honest here. Like, Offord has always kind of felt like a reach to me. It felt like a reach when they were making the push a couple weeks ago. Like, I think it feels like a reach now. I mean, I don't doubt that they're putting the pressure on. I've not heard nearly enough here to make me feel good about where the Gators stand. I think outside of Pickett, this one would maybe be the biggest surprise of these 5 stars to me if Florida were to get him.
Okay, I'm also gonna say no because again, kind of feel a bit too good to be true. I am a bit more like I think it wouldn't be a huge surprise. I think honestly at this point, Dallas Wilson would be a bigger surprise to me.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe that's fair
because Dallas Wilson's kind of more random.
Yeah,
but like I'm not gonna say we get Offord. I feel like it's just a bit too good to be true. And then we're getting to the last one here, Jamie French. How Stubbs now projected to flip to Florida, teammates with Stubbs. I hear him, French and Stubbs are really close, like even closer than Terrell Jones and French are. And that Stubbs flipping to Florida is huge for French. I'm going to say we get French, which if you would have asked me literally yesterday, I wouldn't have said that. But with Stubbs being on campus, I heard French came with him. I was told a really big number that Texas offered him. Maybe that was maybe I got lied to. Maybe it was off, or maybe that was just a 4-year deal. I'm going to assume that we're getting a cheaper deal than what he's getting from Texas. And I'm going to say we surprise and land French.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Like, I think definitely the most day-to-day situation of these guys that we're talking about, I might feel different. I might have a different answer for you tomorrow if we were to do this. I mean, there's a lot of smoke here. Like, I don't want to frame it like there's not. I've seen a ton of things about the Gators sitting in a nice spot for him. He just seems very fickle to me. Like, it really seems like he's a hard guy to read and read where he's leaning here. I mean, I think if Stubbs flips, you got to like that with Stubbs and Trammell being in the class. This feels to me kind of like the one that Florida fans get their hopes really up for to just not happen. Like he's committed to Texas. I think that's a good place. I mean, if you're a receiver, I think that's a good place to be committed with Steve Sarkisian.
And money.
And money. Yeah, Steve Sarkisian and that oil money. Good for receivers. This is like, I would not be nearly as surprised if French ends up a Gator than I would be Dallas Wilson or Naeem Offord or DJ Pickett. Like, to me, he is very much in the Solomon Thomas class of this could really happen. I just think if I were a betting man, which I'm not really, that I would say that he sticks it out with Texas.
Okay. So we disagree there. Is there any other names that maybe you want to shout out? Maybe you think that we land surprisingly that we just didn't put on the list?
Honestly, not off the top of my head. I feel like that was pretty comprehensive.
Okay. So just to go through it real quick, players that are committed: Ben Hanks Jr. we both have, Jalen Wiggins we both have, Nashawn Montgomery and Tayshawn Gilsey I have, Gasper neither of us have, McLeod we both have, and then on flips, Otis Konambeni we both have, Lagonza Hayward we both have, Halton Stubbs we both have, Kellen Wiley neither of us have, Naeem Offord neither of us have, Myron Charles neither of us have, Dallas Wilson neither of us have, Solomon Thomas, did I say him?
No, I don't think so.
We both have. And then Jamie French I have, you don't have. If we get what I said, my list, I mean, that's a better class than what we had last year. It's probably our best recruiting class, probably since Will Muschamp.
I mean, turning this into a top 10 class with where it was 2 weeks ago would be unreal. I mean, I have had no shortage of criticisms for Billy Napier, even as this has turned around a little bit, but that would be truly impressive.
Yeah, it definitely would be very impressive. I know I saw some comments earlier that people wanted us to get into. Got one right here. Norvell is a dweeb. Here we go, Zach. And one more side note: is Pyburn going to the NFL? No.
Can he? Is he in his 3rd year?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, you're right.
Because his freshman season, he played against Oregon State in that bowl game. He redshirted.
Okay, yeah, he came in with Billy's first class, like his transitional class. Yeah, I don't think that's a real concern with Pyburn.
also asked, what is the biggest need right now? And he said, the people did say O-line is always the biggest need. But I feel like if you get Solomon Thomas, then maybe not be the biggest need. I'd say maybe receiver.
Yeah. I think receiver just roster-wise is maybe the biggest need. Yeah. Like not even just looking at the recruiting class, just in general.
I think Florida fans are way past getting their hopes up.
Fair enough, Dave.
Yeah, I still have a lot of hope and happiness, even though we have struggled a bit over the past century. But decade, not century, sorry. But I do have some hope. Feels like all the hype on Twitter today, and from what information I was hearing, it just seems like things are going to go really well for the Gators here at the end of the class. And hey, maybe there's some players that just don't commit and sign on signing day that the Gators are like, hey, you're a 5-star, just come here, we'll pay this money.
There's almost always a surprise. Like
there is
maybe not almost always, but very often there is an addition to the class that no one really saw coming until signing day.
I mean, like Naeem Offord, that would probably be a big surprise. I mean, that would be a big surprise. So it's like, I mean, even on signing day, USC had a 5-star wide receiver decommit today. Maybe they go after him if they don't land French or Wilson. So, yeah, we both have the same last name, plus Gator fans. Officially the best podcast. Yes, we are. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on the channel. We have other videos from other podcasts. Maybe you don't want to watch the whole thing because we're going to go maybe 2 hours on this show. Went 2.5 hours in the last one. I mean, hey. And if you just want to watch,
appreciate you guys staying engaged. We went that long because the chat kept going and people were engaged and interested. So we'll keep talking about the Gators as long as you guys want to hear it.
Absolutely. Dave is the SEC shorts hope, then it's us. So
is that a reference to an SEC short? Because if I just maybe not
hope. Not okay, the character Hope, and then it's so maybe there's going to be dialogue. That's what he's predicting between the characters. Do you want to talk about some other non-Gator related stuff like the playoffs? I mean, I wonder who's going to get in. That last spot. So let's say SMU beats Clemson. So that last spot, Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, or Miami, probably those teams that are looking for it. It's going to be Bama, isn't it?
I agree. I think it's going to be Alabama.
I think we're going to learn a lot on Tuesday from the final playoff committee show before Selection Sunday.
Oh, I think we'll have a good idea what's going to happen based on Tuesday's rankings. I think it'll be pretty clear. I mean, because there could be chaos on Saturday, but not really because like Georgia, Texas, that game doesn't matter. Both teams are in. Or Oregon, Penn State game doesn't matter. Both teams are in. Clemson, SMU, I mean, mostly just swap them out. Maybe it might not even matter. Like SMU could be out if they lose. I don't necessarily.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Because here's the thing: if Clemson jumps in because they beat SMU, do they knock SMU out for, let's say, Alabama? I mean, you're knocking SMU for winning or losing their conference championship game, a game that if they weren't playing in, they would be in the playoff.
Which is why Joe Tessitore needs to calm down a little bit by just assuming Georgia locked it up with a win. I mean, in Georgia's case, they're probably fine, but I don't get like the confidence people have in assuming that the committee is not going to hold it against you if you lose an extra game in an SEC or conference championship. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but why do you think they wouldn't?
Yeah, that's the question. Tennessee and Georgia will be first one out when it starts. Are you saying losing in the first round? I think that's what he says.
Basically, they're both locks for the.
Yeah, I assume that's what he means. What if South Carolina gets in?
I mean, I would love it. I think they're the best of those three SEC teams right now. But like, how can you do that? How can you put them in over 2 9-3 teams they lost to?
Yeah,
I mean they're probably going to jump Ole Miss, which is going to really piss Ole Miss fans off.
Because even with Bama has the worst loss in South Carolina. But Bama did get. I mean, Bama does have the best win. Yeah. And imagine. Oh, okay. This is interesting. The way to look at it. Say Texas beats Georgia pretty handedly. Like, let's say they beat them like 31 to like 14.
Mm-hmm.
That Georgia win doesn't look as good for Bama. Could they then see South Carolina? I mean,
I think, I mean, I wouldn't look. I think, again, I would love to see South Carolina be the team that gets in of those three. I just think politically, if they did that, like not like disregarding the fact that it's Alabama, if they did that to anybody, it would be bad. To a team that lost to South Carolina, beat South Carolina, let alone Alabama of all teams. But I don't want Kalen DeBoer to be rewarded for going 9-3 in year one. So I'd love to see them get left.
Well, it's likely somebody's gonna get the 9-3 nod.
One of those three SEC teams is getting in. It's just probably going to be them.
If SMU loses, do you want SMU in, or would you rather Bama in? I'd probably say Bama.
Yeah, I just was trying to figure out a way to say it that didn't make me sound like some like SEC chauvinist. But yeah, like I don't. I mean, SMU's schedule is a joke, man. Like, they avoided the best teams in the conference. If they lose to the only good team in the conference that they played, how can you put them in there?
Let's look at some of the predicted matchups that we would get, because I think there are some real interesting ones. So let's say Oregon, Texas, SMU, Boise State win. So those are your top 4 seeds. And then the 5 seed.
Do you think it's a guarantee that Boise's the top 4 seed if they win? Do you think that's a lock?
I think Arizona State could jump them. Here's the thing. Boise State's also getting a good game against UNLV. Because UNLV is ranked in the top 25 right now.
If UNLV wins that game, they're one in the playoff. Yeah,
they are. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to say Boise stays in because Arizona State's 16th right now. Arizona State would have to jump 5 spots above to get next to Boise State.
They probably have to really take care of business on Saturday.
Yeah, maybe style points is how you would, which I think they could. Iowa State. So then let's say those top 5 seeds are, the 5 auto bids in order are Oregon, Texas, SMU, Boise State, and Arizona State. So then you're looking at the 5 seed, either a 2-loss Penn State or Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame gets it.
Sorry, you're saying if Penn State were to lose?
Yeah, Penn State's 1 spot ahead Notre Dame right now. However, Notre Dame just took care of business against USC, which is a better win than Penn State has.
Yeah, Notre Dame would probably jump them in the seed. I think Penn State's fine, win or lose.
Yeah, they're in. Yeah, I'm saying seed. Yeah. So the 5 versus 12 matchup, Arizona State at Notre Dame. I think that's a really interesting matchup.
Ooh, that's actually fascinating. I'd probably still take Notre Dame, but that's fascinating.
I would too. Notre Dame's been playing really good football.
Yeah.
But I think of all the matchups, that might be the best for Arizona State, of or the Penn States, or if Texas loses, it could be Texas, because Notre Dame hasn't really beat anybody besides USC. They beat A&M earlier in the year, but since that loss,
they beat Louisville. That's Louisville is their best win since the season got rolling.
Yeah, so I could see Arizona State maybe sneaking one there, and then maybe my favorite matchup. Penn State as the 6th seed and the 11th seed. You talked about it. Alabama. Could you imagine Alabama going to Happy Valley?
No, I literally couldn't. In December, in 3rd week of December, no, I can't imagine that. That would be so sick. And they probably lose.
Bama loses? Is that what you're saying?
I think Bama would lose. I think Bama might lose to Penn State, honestly. I think Penn State's defense is pretty legit.
Yeah, I think they could lose that too, but
I have negative faith in Jalen Milroe right now, to be honest with you.
I mean, he's pretty good on Saturday. The rest of his offense, besides Ryan Williams, that's really honestly my biggest thing. I think the rest of the offense, no run game besides him. Outside of Ryan Williams, his receivers are kind of mid. No, it's disappointing with how good DeBoer did with Washington's offense last year that it's not really working too well right now. And also, James Franklin's known to lose these big games. Oh, 100%. Is known to win big games. Was 3-0 against Oregon in the last 2 seasons when Oregon was a good team. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe Bama does win the big games. They beat Georgia earlier in the year. That's how good this Bama team can be. A team that's up by 4 scores against Georgia at halftime.
They were pretty bad against Tennessee, though, and I'd say that was a big game.
They were. That is true.
Yeah.
But if they still get in the playoffs, DeBoer will have his team ready to play.
Oh,
I think he will. I think it'll be a close game. I'm not gonna say I don't know who wins. I don't know. But then the next matchup would be the 7 versus 10 seed, which is either Georgia or Tennessee probably.
You got to put Georgia ahead of Tennessee, right?
Unless Texas dominates them, I think Georgia would stay ahead of them. And you know who Georgia would be hosting?
Indiana.
Likely Indiana. That's gonna be a splat. That would be a splattering.
Oh God, yeah. That would be disgusting. That would be a disgusting game.
Indiana at Sanford Stadium. Oh my goodness.
That would be rough score prediction. I'd go 45-7.
Rob, as long as Miami doesn't make it, I don't think Miami will make it.
I think they need something. They need a scenario that I can't even come up with off the top of my head. I think
don't think Jalen Milroe could pass. Interesting.
I don't either. I mean, I really don't. He has cost them several games by making.
Well, Clayton, we're predicting the results based on this. I'm saying Oregon beat Penn State. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah. The
biggest one we're saying is Texas, Georgia.
Who do you like in that game, by the way?
Texas, Georgia?
Mm-hmm. I'm
going to take Georgia. Honestly,
I like Texas.
You do? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take Georgia, but for this purpose, I'll stick with Texas here.
Yeah.
So then that final matchup. So I wonder how the ranking's going to look on who's ahead, who's going to be 8 and 9 seed. Tennessee and Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State traveling to Neyland at 10, that would be pretty fun. But also Tennessee
that would be
traveling to the Horseshoe.
Either of those games would be awesome. Just a kind of college football game I just never thought we would get.
Indiana 45, Georgia 7. I love it. That's my new.
I would love it too, but then I would hate it when my alarm rang and I had to wake up from that lovely dream.
Honestly, I'd take Tennessee. Michigan beat Ohio State in the Big House. Tennessee's a better. I think Tennessee's a better version of Michigan. Great
You're
defense.
probably right. I mean, that's not a bad way to describe it. I really don't like either of these teams.
Running back.
I mean, I think Ohio State's offense looks like a massive problem. I think Tennessee can at least run the ball pretty consistently.
Yep.
I'd probably go Tennessee too because of the state of Ohio State's offensive line. Yep. It's in a bad spot right now.
I saw it a little bit ago. Do you know who has the best odds to win the college football playoff?
Is it not Oregon now?
They're second.
Behind Georgia?
Ohio State.
Still? I know Ohio State had the best odds before Saturday. They still have the best odds?
They do, but the odds have gotten worse, but they still have the best odds. It's plus 375.
Wow.
And Oregon's plus 425. It's insane.
That is insane.
So, that Tennessee-Ohio State game, that would be a very fun game.
I mean, just the idea of Ohio State playing a game at Neyland, that doesn't that just feels like a game you could only get in college football 25. That just doesn't seem like something that could be real.
If it wasn't clear, I can't stand Georgia. Born and raised in Georgia as a Florida fan. You can imagine, that would really suck. I went to the Florida-South Carolina game back in 2021 where that's where it was over for Dan Mullen after that game. It was already pretty far done after the Georgia game.
That was 40-17, right?
Yeah, it was 45-17 with South Carolina's third or fourth string QB.
That was brutal, man.
That was
awful.
I had South Carolina fans. They were throwing drinks at us, or one of them did. They were yelling obscenities at us, I mean,
that's all. I went there in 2019. They're an underrated.
It was so nice. I love Williams-Brice.
Yeah.
Fans not as much, but Williams-Brice is a really fun play, especially when they get going with Enter Sandman.
No, it's Sandstorm. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
Enter Sandman's Virginia Tech.
That's getting confused all the time, man. Yeah. But it's a really fun. That's a really fun environment. Everyone jump in and everything. Oh man. But then, so what? 5-12. We took Notre Dame. So Notre Dame would then face the 4 seed, which we said would have been Boise State.
They would kill them. They would
I agree.
Kill them.
I 100% agree. It's sad, but
I feel bad. Boise's been fun, but like outside of Ashton Genty, they don't look like a very good team right
now. No. And then Penn State would face, we said, Alabama. And then the winner of that game would end up facing SMU. What matchup do we think SMU could beat? I think SMU is a good football team, honestly.
I do too. I think they're going to be in a rough spot in almost any of these matchups they could draw. But I do think that I agree. Like they are, I think, among the 12 best teams in the country. I just don't know. They might be like number 12. So
I think SMU has a better chance to beat Bama because I think it's more likely that that Bama does on offense and that their defense hasn't been consistent or get really good. I think SMU could tear them apart on defense, and if Bama's offense does, SMU is a good front seven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their defense is like very legit. Yeah.
So if Penn State went through, I'd take Penn State. If Bama went through, it would be tough. I don't know who I'd pick. And then the 2 seed, we said Texas. They would face the winner of the Georgia-Indiana game. It's Georgia. So then we're getting a Georgia-Texas the third time there.
Please no. Can we not have that happen?
Oh, man.
Please, Indiana, do God's work here and don't let that happen again.
I'm not going to pick that again. And then Oregon would face the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State.
That they're going to win. They'd beat either of those teams.
We peaked Tennessee. Tennessee's offense just isn't enough. The front seven.
No, I don't trust Nico. I don't believe in Nico.
Yeah.
I think their run game isn't enough.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So then we're looking at Oregon versus probably, we said, Notre Dame. That's Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bullish on Oregon. I think they've had like a couple minorly like mediocre games, but we're grading on a sliding scale. All these teams keep losing games and they're not. So
Oregon has struggled though, like Wisconsin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They have those games, but they win them. And ultimately they're still 12-0 and they have a top 3 win in the country this year. I mean, devalued a little bit after Saturday, no doubt, but still. And they beat Boise. I feel like people forget they did beat Boise.
Yep. Then we're probably looking at they beat it by 3 points, which maybe that shows us that
Boise's claim to fame here. Yeah.
Maybe that shows us that Boise's game against who we said Notre Dame. Maybe it's closer than we think. I mean, I don't see it. I think that Notre Dame offense has been humming lately. I mean, Riley Leonard has really gotten to a groove.
Really like low key how just absolutely dominant they've been down the stretch here. I mean, like aside from the Louisville game, which was semi-close, they've pretty much taken care of business. And like USC, the score looked a little close. That was kind of fake. They were in control. Of
USC had a late comeback at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they put up a ton of garbage time numbers. Like that was pretty fake.
Am I crazy for thinking Notre Dame could win it all?
I think Riley Leonard ultimately isn't good enough. But I will say in a year where there's no quarterbacks that I love, like
I think the biggest problem, losing Benjamin Morris. Maybe the best corner in all of college football.
Yeah.
If they face Oregon, they're gonna have to cover Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart and their tight end. What's his name? Can't think of his name, but
I can't think of it either.
If they had Benjamin Morris, maybe, but now they'd probably Oregon would have too much power on offense. So then we're looking at Oregon, Georgia, or Oregon, Texas in the championship. I don't even know, man. These teams are too inconsistent.
I kind of feel like Texas is poised to do it.
Really?
I kind of do. I kind of like where they're at right now.
I don't think Quinn Ewers is a good enough quarterback.
Well, I don't either necessarily, but like as we're talking, like, do you think Carson Beck is a good enough quarterback? I mean, maybe Dylan Gabriel is. Maybe Dylan Gabriel is the one guy here who is like of that caliber.
Carson Beck's the most consistent QB.
Low key with the best. Is Sam Levitt one of the best quarterbacks in this college football?
Oh, playoff? Sam Levitt.
I mean, is he? He's been awesome.
We haven't really seen him play a good defense though.
You're right, but he's been awesome. And Carson Beck has been awful against some not good defenses. And same with Quinn Ewers.
Would it be Kevin Jennings at SMU?
He'd be up there. He's had a great year. Yeah. We don't talk about enough that Rhett Lashley benched his like preseason all ACC quarterback and they got
Yep. Payne Stone got benched. Could South Carolina win it all? They have the defense. Lenora Sellers may be the best QB then in the playoff as well.
Yeah. I mean, at their best, they look like a team that can. I think their offense is prone to clunkers a little too much. Like, I don't think I trust them. But, like, then, on any given game, absolutely, they could beat anybody.
If, let's say we replace South Carolina with Bama, South Carolina versus Penn State, I take South Carolina. I think offensively, they're better offensively, and I think defensively that we haven't really seen Drew Aller win big games like that. So it's like, I think he'd succumb under pressure. And then what? You'd look at South Carolina versus, where we have Penn State and 6th seed. So they would face SMU. Ooh, I think South Carolina wins that game too. Yeah. And South Carolina, Texas.
No. That's where the fun ends, I think.
With Quinn Ewers almost lost Texas that A&M game. If A&M has an offense, I think A&M will beat Texas.
Maybe, but A&M had an offense kind of against South Carolina. It just wasn't enough of an offense because they gave up a lot of points in that game.
Yeah, about 24 points?
That they gave up or that they scored?
Texas A&M scored.
Yeah, something like that.
All right.
I mean yeah, I think, yeah, I kind of agree with Michael's comment down there that South Carolina is ultimately going to choke. Like,
yeah, that's probably.
I think that I like them. I think they're really good. Sellers has some bad games. Like, Sellers has had some pretty rough games this year.
Early. I mean, most of them were early in the year, though.
But, man, yeah, you're right. And, dude, did you watch? How much of that Clemson game did you watch? Because he looked like
I was flipping it between that and the Michigan game. He was.
He literally looked like, I mean, literally, like, I was like, that looks like Cam Newton, the way he's like, the way he was running and breaking tackles and stuff. It was awesome.
If you're a playoff team, I think you're praying South Carolina doesn't make it. Because South Carolina is the one team that's going to be tough to blow out because they have a really good defensive front. And they have a QB that at his peak is maybe playing like the most scary QB in the country.
Yeah. And to Beamer's credit, they've been politicking like crazy trying to get in the playoff. And he said that, and I think he's right, that of all the teams in the mix, like South Carolina is probably one of the ones you really don't want to see.
Yep. Oh, man. Well, that was some fun playoff talks. Do you have anything else you want to say on the stream about recruiting or how we ended the FSU game?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of like dovetail everything together. I mean, nice way to wrap up the year, obviously, like finishing 7-5. I mean, I think it would have been a massive disappointment if you didn't win that game, but you still did. You finished the year, the way you were supposed to. And, you've got momentum on the trail. So now let's just see. I mean, we're 72 hours away now almost from National Signing Day starting. And I mean, big opportunity here for the Gators to close out with, I mean, I would say it looks like if you just base it on crystal balls alone, it looks like the Gators are trending toward a top 10 class here.
Yep.
So it's pretty impressive.
Got to give the staff a lot of credit. Rob, any OC candidates, we're going to talk about that maybe in the next show after signing day. We're going to have a show Wednesday, assuming the Gators do end up finishing this class off really strong. We'll have a show Wednesday covering all who we got and what this means for the overall ranking of the class, but also the team roster going into next season. So we'll be back on Wednesday. And I'll also say, great win. We're complaining about only winning 20 points against an FSU team as a rival on the road. I feel like the state of the program right now is in a really good spot. So I'm going to end it there, guys. I hope everyone has a great week. We will see you Wednesday. And as always, go Gators.